And then I was like, so I'm like, I would never do like an organized event. I would never just sign up for a 5K race or something. Like there's no way I'd belong there. And as I started to start to change my mindset and do like different things, I was like, well, I'd never do that. So I need to do that. I need to challenge myself to do something I've never done before.
Welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. This is the podcast for dads of all seasons to learn the things that they can do and engage so that they can go and equip the next generation for success. Here we sit down with everyday dads just like you to learn from their story, get inspired, and then start getting after it. So we invite you to join in, see what you can take away from this story, and apply to your life on your journey to becoming the Skilled Dad.
Hey guys, welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. My name is Zach Reeser. I'm your host, and I'm glad you're here. I've been seeing more and more people joining in the community, and I love seeing it. We're getting some great feedback from some of you about takeaways that you've had, especially with the episode from Q, who hosts Mediocre Dads. So if you haven't heard of his podcast, go check it out. He's got some really good insight and different perspectives on what he's doing in the community that he's building. And it makes me think, when I talk about community, makes me think about the gentleman I have on with me, because when we talked darn near a month ago from the time of recording, we really talked about a lot of things. But one of them was the importance of community and the concept of being dad shouldn't be DIY, but there's skills and things that we learn that we need to have in order to kind of pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, right? And then getting people around us that can only enhance those skills. On today's episode, I'm thrilled to finally have Sean Robinson on here with me. Sean, thanks for being on Skilled Dad podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I'm excited to be here. Our just schedules couldn't line up, so it's great we finally can get this conversation.
Oh, I'm pumped. It's like we're dads and baseball tournaments pop up or games come up or whatever, but we still make it happen. And here we are, right? That's the essence of dad. We're going to make it happen.
That's right. Yeah, it might be to our own, we might sacrifice our own stuff, but it gets done.
That's it. That's the end of the podcast right there, folks. Like we take the essence of sticking with it and then a little bit of sacrifice on our end, or a lot in some cases, to make it happen for the kids. No, but we're across country lines at this point, right? Because you were hailing from Canada on the other end. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm about 2 hours from Toronto, Ontario.
Okay. I just spent the weekend, again, time of recording here, with some folks from London, Ontario. Is that near you or like opposite direction?
That's about 2 hours further, so it'll be about 4 hours drive to London.
Okay. Got it. I'm still getting my Canadian geography down. Not a skill set I've fully developed yet, right? So I appreciate you helping me with that. But
Yeah, no problem.
so Sean and I got connected a while back, and he's got a really great story about some of his own learnings and really something that he had a few years ago where he kind of realized, hey, I need a shift in my life. And he got in there, he dug in and fought through a lot of things. And then on the other side of that, he's been using that story to help equip other men and other dads, other parents with that, and continues to learn. And when we talked last time, because I always do an intro call, I'm just giving behind the scenes, apparently, Sean, for everyone that's listening now, but I always do an intro call before I sit down because, I get to talk to a lot of great men, and it also helps us just get to know each other. And then, hey, what are some cool things you might want to talk about? But he was grilling during that. So not only was he making me hungry, but secondly, when he popped on, he's like, I'm not grilling today. And I think maybe the next video episode, like we should do another one where we're both grilling. It's like we can do a double word usage, is like grilling each other kind of thing. Apparently I had too much coffee this morning, but you've shared a lot of that story, but there's also a lot of things as you continue to develop that you want to hit on. What I want to do before I jump into all that is really kind of just start the conversation and hand the mic over to you. Tell us about yourself, and let's just get started from there, and we can take the conversation down the road. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's great.
The mic is
Y-
yours, sir.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm not grilling today, but that definitely happened. I think that's a very dad thing if we set that next one up.
Let's do it.
So I'm turning 40 this year. Basically, I grew up in a very like dominant masculine environment. My dad's was a mechanic. He was also a volunteer firefighter. I have two younger brothers. Um, just that whole environment growing up, working in the garage, helping fix cars. I had my first vehicles. They were, not very nice and needed a lot of work. So I was out there often with them. A lot of that was why I'm not a mechanic today, because just what I didn't like about it. But as I grew up, I ended up getting into my own, like I started on the volunteer fire department when I was about 19, worked through my own apprenticeship as an electrician, just kind of followed in a lot of those dominant masculine spaces and really just felt like the environments that I was a part of and that I grew up in defined what I had to be and how I had to show up. And we can get into a lot of what my other background is, but the person that I had become was a product of what I thought I had to be. And when I realized that I could change that, or that I could work towards changing that, it really opened up what I could be and have become now.
When you say kind of the dominant masculine spaces, I mean, so we're talking about the mechanic side and like those were all the hands-on areas you were in. What were some of the things that you experienced that were going on that you said kind of helped shape you, they didn't necessarily like? Or if you're open to share that part of it.
Yeah, my parents were young when they were married. They were 20 when I was born. They just had a young lifestyle. So there was always people over. It's always drinking and alcohol and parties. We were in a safe place, but there was an example set for me that I would carry through into my own life and habits. I just felt like that was something that I had to do, drinking and
Mhm.
parties and hosting and all the things. It's not to give any sort of context to what my parents were doing, but we just don't know what we're showing our kids with our lifestyle, right? And
Mhm.
and I don't think they realized what it was teaching me. So, and also in that space and in those environments, having different conversations and swearing and my dad being very impatient and whether it was a drinking thing or just because it was that late in the evenings or whatever it was like I was just getting a version of him that I didn't like. And as I grew up, and a form of generational trauma in a sense, because like my dad's father passed away when he was 13 and he didn't have
Mm.
that influence in his life from his dad. It was like he was trying to figure things out and didn't know it either. So to transfer things to me that he didn't have proper you know help with as he was growing, it was just going to happen. So there was
Yeah.
different generational traumas that I had to experience growing up. And getting into a construction space, be it the mechanic or, even firefighting and like electrical, you're getting generational traumas from other people too, right? You're an apprentice and your journey person is, giving you this like almost abuse because of what the expectation as that apprentice to carry the tools or get the coffees or be faster than you're capable of. All of those things
Mhm.
just transfer throughout those places in construction and whatever. And a lot of that helps define who we become. But we feel like we have to be that person, especially when
Mhm.
you start to have our own kids. And if I'm getting an example set for me as I grow up, what am I naturally going to do? I'm naturally going to think what was set for me is the truth. And I started to see myself becoming a version that I didn't like. And it was part of the decision to just start changing some things that I was doing with my drinking habits and different things to just in an effort to become a better person for both me and for my kids.
What you're saying reminds me of a phrase like, we don't rise to the occasion, we fall to our highest form of training. And so it
Yeah.
sounds like when you came into the zone where now your dad, the training that you had received was that, right? Maybe a little bit rougher than what we'd like, with some habits that for you were not things that you found as being healthy, right? But you were in those, you started doing them, sounds like,
Mhm.
right? You fell to
Yeah.
that training. So what was it that kind of got you, that clicked for you, that you're like, you know what, this is not the way I want to be. This is not the zone I want to be in.
About the end of 2020, that first year of COVID, not being able to go out, all the things that came with that, it just made an already bad routine lifestyle and drinking alcohol. It just made it worse. We were doing Zoom calls and having these parties with friends or drinking parties because it was just different and it was fun and it was all those things. But
Mhm.
I already had a bad routine with drinking, and I never felt it was addiction, but it just we go to a function or there'd be a barbecue or camping or whatever we were doing. It was like I just had to make sure I had as much or more than I would need to keep drinking throughout the event. I found a point at the end of 2020, I was 320 pounds, just miserable, both physically, mentally, becoming that version I didn't like and just needed something to change. Coming from that toxic masculine space, I just felt like I had to fix it myself. I felt like I couldn't reach out. I had to be tough, macho man, dad, not ask for help, all those things. And, it wasn't, I don't even know if it was something that was ever said to me, although I'm sure I got it like, toughen up, be a man. But it was like by fixing it myself, I was supposed to just know how to do that. And we don't know how to do that, right? We're not born with that knowledge. So where did I think I was going to be able to just do that? I don't know. As I started 2021 and setting different goals for learning more about habits and routines and just kind of the not drinking to start 2021 and extending that through what became my book, it was like that catalyst for me to just start doing things that I never did before and start feeling things that I never felt before.
Mm. So maybe a culmination of things just built up and then something just clicked that you're like, I'm gonna switch it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
switch it. And then to go and have the intrinsic drive to go do that, I think it takes a lot of courage and boldness, right? At the same time, you realize like, it's an interesting idea of, hey, just go do the thing you don't know how to do. Like I just need to do it. Great. I don't know that what that is. I'm not clear on what that actually is, but just go do it. I mean, for those listening, how many of you ever find yourself in that zone? It's like, I just need to do it. Kind of you needed to be tough. And it sounds like maybe what you saw as tough was continuing on with like what you had experienced with that environment and the general idea of like we always need to have the beer in hand, we need to be macho, we need to be whatever that idea is. But it sounds like maybe there's an opportunity to redefine what it is to be tough and what it is to still be that tough masculinity, because what you did was tough. Like being a dad is tough, but it also helps us be tough. And what I love about your opportunity is like you grew up, you learn mechanic skills, right? You learn that stuff
Mhm.
and you learned, being a firefighter is awesome. So thank you for that because it's a service oriented thing that you're pushing for. Electrician background, which by the way, you're about to have a windfall of people probably wanting to come and be your journeymen and apprentices and everything because everybody's getting back into trades. Well, a lot of people are interested in trade skills again. Those are tough things, but you have the hard skills. But then you're like, hey, you know what? I need to switch this up because it sounds like you had a great opportunity to learn the hard skills, but maybe we're missing on the quote unquote soft skills,
Mhm.
leadership, listening, empathy, all those other things. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that comes naturally with that sector. You get a lot of the soft and not a lot of the hard skills, for sure.
So like maybe we can be like Captain Planet, right? It's like we can bring all these powers together. That's a total 90s reference, I guess. Being a skilled dad, tough dad is not taking the old school idea of you're one way or the other. It's a combination of the fact that we can do things. We have a community of men around us. We can fix things. We can do things. Our wives can lean on us. They're like, hey, my husband actually knows how to use some of these tools or solve some of these problems. And at the same time, we can lead. So it's that holistic concept that I think encapsulates this whole skilled dad concept very well. With the tough dad piece, when you made the shift, do you feel less tough?
No, it's a different tough. I think it's my definition of what toughness was involved, you know, putting that tape band-aid around it or whatever versus actually getting that first aid kit. It was like that toughness is just not showing that emotion or not having that sensitivity to, be patient, or, to not yell, or to understand that, the little minds we're working with don't know everything that we know. They're not at that level yet. We're not talking to coworkers and adults from the same generation and experience. A lot of that toughness that I thought was just different. It was a different definition. And, the way I see it now is toughness, but not in the same context. There's still those soft skills. There's still that patience. There's still a lot of other components that make a better definition.
Yeah. At this point, I'm just like totally externalizing with you. Like, I think this could be fun, but because you're making my brain work in good new ways here. When we equate the word tough, for me, I'm curious your thoughts. For me, when you think tough, you think strength. If it's tough, it's strong. If you're gonna go buy any of these, I have like a bag on here. It's like the tough bottoms and all the things that go into it that make it tough. But at the end of the day, it's strength. Would you agree with that, or see it
Yeah.
differently?
Yeah. But I think it's tough, like showing emotion, right? For me, it was, you're not tough unless you bottle that up, right?
Hmm.
But it's tough to be emotional. It's tough to show that. So, it's just as much one way as it is the other. And what does that mean to you? Like, what are you trying to show as acceptable? Do you want to encourage that bottle up and toughen up, or do you want to encourage that show the emotion? I think there's a healthy way to have both, something that is just based on us a different scenario, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to, not bottle up, but at least just hold some of that back to get through maybe a tough moment. But then your reflection later involves the tough part of opening up and outletting where you need to.
That's a great segue. Because as we're talking through this, it's kind of like, was it ever really that tough? I mean, maybe for some, like, I didn't know him personally, but Chuck Norris seemed pretty tough. But in the conversations that I've had over the last couple of years, and even beyond, like with people that you actually get to know, there's the tough exterior. It's like a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop, right? It's tough on the outside, but then what you even just said, like you're putting on the tough shell, but inside it's still there. And so if there isn't this purge valve, then it can actually, that's where a lot of this stuff that's been coming out for, you know, many men comes from, because it's never like really dealt with, because the idea is you got to be tough on the outside, you got to look tough. But the reality is we're people, we're human, we have feelings. If you don't, there's actually legitimate issues. If you have no feelings, that's a problem. But but I think that's some of the definition, because in some ways it seems like the pendulum swung. I don't know, culturally, I don't think we're too far off, right? In Canada and America. But
No, I don't think so.
you're pretty close to Detroit, aren't you?
I was actually in Windsor on the weekend.
So, I mean, from the cultural perspective, you have this toughness on the outside, but there's still a lot of stuff stirring. And we also need to be able to show that to our kids. But you absolutely can be tough and strong, but also be strong inside, not just the shell side, but outside and inside holistically. And I think that's where that definition of, and that's what I was saying with the pendulum swinging, it kind of went the other way, where it's like I need to like over emote. Like, so like, oh, I'm tough because I share all my feelings. Like, there's a time and a place in people for that, right? But we don't need
Mhm.
to just throw out the baby with the bathwater and not still have the strength. So there's the outer strength, the inner strength, and you get me all jazzed up, because that's what we want to do, because it can be done, and you're doing it. And I know a lot of people, because they're asking stuff, like they have some of the soft skills and things, but they don't know how to do the hard skill, right?
Mhm.
So guys like you can come in, and as you've learned and want to hear more about your journey and what you're learning, um, can teach so that we can be like holistically strong. And then the final piece of what you just said is having the place to do it and the people to do it with, is what you and I talked about. It's like
Mhm.
your boys, your group of men that you can go to. That's not just your wife. Like, we want that relationship, but there's things we want to talk about with your guys that sometimes you gotta just hash it out. And so that's incredibly important. And that's the whole concept we talked about before, which is being dad doesn't have to be DIY. Like you don't have to do it by yourself. And so you went down your journey, you made the shift, you wrote a book. I want to hear about your book. How did that morph for you after you had that moment where you're like, I'm switching it up? And this is now we're talking 3.5 years.
Now 3.5.
Yeah. Time flies, we're having fun. But yeah, so how'd that shift happen for you?
Well, at first, it was tough. There was a lot of things I didn't know. There was a lot of old things that I remembered from growing up, or things I thought to be true, or environments I was in. How does someone just start to feel differently or think differently than what they're used to, especially when they have to try and do it themselves and not ask anybody for help or talk to anybody about it, right? It
Right.
was not a good recipe. So in the beginning for me, it was tough because I had to come to terms with the fact that what I thought to be true about needing to do this on my own, or needing to just know everything, thinking that I knew what I had to do and I just had to do it. I didn't know what I had to do. So just reaching out even through Google just to find out some information, or to start searching different things, or in social media, following people that were doing something I thought I wanted to do, and just learning more about the other side, if you will. That was a hard transition because, like I said, I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody about it. So while that sense of community is huge, the community I was in was all doing things that I didn't feel like I wanted to do anymore, or in the same way. So that was a harder transition too, is because while community is extremely important, what makes up our community, who is in that circle that is supportive, and really, like, for a bit, it was people I didn't know what I wanted to become. So how could the people around me know? Right. Like
Mhm.
my own brother was like, "Oh, you can't have a beer. Do you haven't got your coin yet?" Like, very insensitive statement
Right.
about, situation that I was processing without really understanding what that term, or what that statement, what might have meant to me, that's trying to, just become a better person.
Right. It sounds
Well, yeah,
like
I
what
mean, we grew up in
with
the
the
same
coin.
environment, and I wasn't in a program, but it was just like, just that jab, just that statement, like, "Oh, you turned it down, like, you don't got your coin, you can't have a beer with me." And it was just like he didn't understand because, people that we just nobody was not doing what we normally did. You get used to a
Right.
routine you're in, and the Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, or whatever, and what you do during the week. And it was like, "Oh, I know, I'm good. I don't want one. I'm fine. Do you have anything else?" And, "Oh, you haven't got," like, it was just him processing it the way he was. But yeah, it wasn't in good context.
Well, he wasn't in the same place you were,
No.
right? Yeah. So to even understand that, and there might be guys that are listening, they're like, I don't quite get it. Now, knowing the audience that I do know, I don't know everyone, obviously. You started to look for something, and I'm gonna make an assumption, which is always dangerous, that those that are listening saw either podcast cover, or they saw something on the internet, or whatever that brought them here, and now they're listening to this podcast. Well, if you start on that journey, then maybe you're looking for something as well, for a reason. And so you come to the right place, and finding the people outside your circle that might be in a similar mindset with a similar drive and similar goals, like this is a good starting place for you. But it doesn't negate the fact that maybe, they say that we're going to be most like the 5 people that we spend the most time with.
Mhm.
And so if we're always spending time with that group that is in that lifestyle, and then someone wants to kind of leave, not leave the tribe, but changes the culture of what that tribe might be, that can be really hard, and sometimes really sad. Like I get that. So so how did that work out for you, or how is it working out for you that you started making that transition, and now you're 3 years down the road. You wrote a book on it, right?
Mhm.
It explains it, it helps people. So how's that looking for you?
There was a lot of pressure to change. We start
Yeah.
to think about what it's like to be different, and it sounds like a lot of work. It has to happen right now. Like, all this work is just going to be done by tomorrow. We can't think about it that way. If I was going to start to do things differently than I was used to, or the group I was with was used to, I was just going to lose all these friends. I was going to now not only be trying things on my own, but I'd be on my own. I think we have to realize that things don't happen that quickly. It's way more gradual than that. We've all left
Right.
school and we've changed jobs. There's friends we thought we'd have forever, and we change careers or change jobs. We just naturally grow apart from those people and we grow closer to other people, or we don't. And I found that I was so worried about things happening so instantaneously that I wouldn't make those changes. But it is way more gradual. I'd start to do different things, and I'd just start to realize that, while I'm still friends with some of these people, I'm not looking for last calls at the bars all the time anymore.
Mhm.
So, that became a different friendship, or that became a different relationship. And as I naturally grew apart from some people, I grew a lot closer to other people. I grew closer to people that were interested in some of the running that I was doing, or different hobbies, or the workshops I've been doing. It's like we naturally grow further apart and closer to people throughout our lives. And if you want to start to change something, it's got to be something over a period of time, and it'll just happen kind of naturally. And I think it'll be a lot easier than you think.
Yeah. No, that is a fantastic point. It's like our brains can sometimes go to the total end of days moment of our life if this change might happen. It could go to the worst case scenario when the reality is rarely is it going to be that worst case scenario and as bad as we think. But that's part of the dangers in the vacuum of our own mind when we don't
Yeah.
have that ability to have that conversation. But no, it's good. I love how you saw the change. I mean, you and I are about to both hit that nice 4-0 mark. Did you already hit that mark? You say you are 40?
No, in August they'll be 40.
My man, we got more stuff. You and I are both gonna hit it in the same month. Okay, cool. Well, we'll talk more about that. So that way we can see, in my brain, like, all right, I'm gonna turn 40. And for all of you who are 40 and above, I know there's like more than half of you. And I'm like, am I gonna be achy the next day? Everyone tells me. So anyway, more to do on that. But all that to be said, you made the shift. The world didn't implode. And it sounds to me, based on our conversations, that your world is enhanced. And so, like, you mentioned running, and I love that you were telling me before, but you were a few years ago, 320 pounds, clearly a different habitual lifestyle, meaning the habits that we do every day, the routines we do every day. And now you're running and you're getting your
Mhm.
kids into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me more about that. I'd love to maybe talk about the story you just shared with me about the most recent run.
Yeah. So yeah, just to back up a little bit, like my dad didn't, he had my parents were on a beer league baseball team, and he did some, beer league hockey. And basically it was always around that social drinking element and not true exercise. I didn't really see, and my mom, she was active in high school, but like as far as that physical exercise example, I didn't have it in my household. So, we were active as kids, my brothers and I, but like growing up, I didn't have the self-confidence through my own like weight journey and whatever. But, as I started to grow and I wanted to lose weight and be more healthy, walking seemed natural. I started to walk more, and then walking became jogging, and then jogging was like, oh, I'm going to try and run a bit. And then I was like, I would never do like an organized event. I would never just sign up for a 5K race or something. There's no way I'd belong there. As I started to change my mindset and do different things, I was like, well, I'd never do that. So I need to do that. I need to challenge myself to do something I've never done before. And I signed up for a 5K race actually. So we're in April recording. It was exactly a year ago I did my first 5K race. And my wife, my kids, we all packed up, and it was only an hour away, but I just didn't know what to expect. We stayed in a hotel within like a 2-minute walk from the start and finish line. And I just challenged myself to show up and to run in this race. And it took me, I think, 34 minutes and I ran the whole thing, kept my own pace, did my own thing. And I really had a moment coming back. And my wife, she surprised me with the kids all made signs, and they're all holding these signs and go dad and coming across the finish line. And it was such a small race in the running world, the
Mhm.
5K, but it was such a huge moment for me to have not only signed up for it and did it, but like to, show that to my kids. And since that moment, I've ran in a few more. A couple 5Ks. I did my first half marathon in October. My wife was there with my kids, and you got the medal, the finishing medal for coming over the line, and they were all lined up, and I gave them high fives as I come down the final stretch, and then they met me at the end, and they wanted to wear the medal and they wanted to celebrate this moment. And just this past weekend, I was telling you that I ran into my second half, and I haven't ran since November, and this was the end of April, and way underprepared, just life happening, way underprepared. I would have come up with every excuse not to do this because of just where I used to be. And I thought, for every reason I'm not going to do this half marathon, I have to do this half marathon. I have to show up and try it and just do my best. And I didn't beat my personal record, but I finished the race. I finished the half, and my young lad, he's turning 11. He's trying out for a hockey team, and he really doesn't want to play on this team. He's shy, and for whatever reason, he doesn't want to. And we're just encouraging him to try. And I'm talking to him about trying his best, and I'm telling him about this race I just ran the day before. I'm still sore from this race, and I'm like, bud, you have to just try, do your best no matter what you're doing. And I said, if you make this team and you don't want to play, you won't have to play. We'll make sure that they know that you changed your mind, and that's okay. But always show up and always do your best. My running and the things I'm doing, even though I finished the half in just under 3 hours, was almost the last one through the line. It didn't mean that to me. It meant that I could do it, and that I could show that to both myself and my own growth, but also my kids and what we want to encourage them to do and what them to become. And it was a really cool moment.
Dude, you gave me chills, and I'm being serious about that. I think on the video, probably with my arm, because the thing that you said was, uh, the this is the medal, right? You and I'm just gonna say what I thought, which sometimes is good, sometimes not. But you told me the beginning of your story in your environment growing up, and that's what it was, and you learned from it, and it built great things in you. And then there's some things that were not as good, but then you chose to make a change. And so it's when your family at the end of the race, you had your first medal, and that you had signed up. You weren't doing it with anybody else, were you? Or was it just you?
No,
Right?
the first one, I didn't know a soul there. I didn't come from that space. I didn't have the body shape and size as like the fastest ones there. And there was a lot of like my own self-conscious and self-doubt. And it was uncomfortable in all the ways.
Yeah. Did you see any other guys like you? Like you said, you didn't have the runner's body. I mean, you're doing the 5K. Did you see other people like you?
Oh yeah, there definitely was. All body shapes. Just this past weekend, I was really close to somebody where I finished that was like a 60, some probably 60-year-old woman. And it isn't that we have I'm not there to compete with her. She was going through her own things, and maybe she had lived that running lifestyle and is just where she's at and still just doing her thing. We're not going to these things to compete with anyone else. And that was a huge thing I had to learn too, because the fact that I could show up and then actually finish it, but then do another one, even going in underprepared, these are just our own battles. These are our own victories and things that we compete against, either who we are now or who we used to be, depending on our background, or
Mhm.
just maybe the last race we did. And now that I've done a couple, like, not that I'm going to do this every weekend, but now I have kind of a baseline that I can use if I want to just measure my growth. Maybe I go in more prepared and I can do another one and can beat my record that I've set for myself. Right.
Dude, I love that. And so the reason I ask you saw other people like you is, and you kind of nailed it with the woman you saw. Like she was running against her own thing or for her own thing. But you'd gone in solo, whatever self-conscious things you went into, first time you'd done it. My guess is there's a lot of other people in that race that were doing something similar. And so, like, my hope one day for anyone listening is that if if you are Sean on his first race and you're trying to debate whether or not you're going to go into it, but it is tough. Like, you're tough, right? You're strong for doing it yourself, because some people really get excited about doing it and the idea of doing it, but then we just don't cross the line to even start. But
Mhm.
you did, and then you got the medal. I want to hit on that in a minute, but for those listening, like, guys, if you're there and there's a line that you're just trying to get across and you're just having trouble to like get there because doing it on your own for whatever reason, my hope is that through this or whatever dad podcast or community, get in one and find some other guys that you can go into it together, because even if you go on your own, I guarantee you're not the only one that is, you're running the same race alone, but you don't have to. So what I love is you got to the end of the race and your wife had made signs and your kids are celebrating you and they're like, "Hey, I want to hold the medal." And I love the way that you've been able to go from uh it's not an indictment per se, but like hold my beer to hold my medal.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's huge, because now you're showing them continued growth, continued improvement, and you were able to identify what you want. And now that is able to translate down to your son and the hockey team and perseverance going after it. And I'm proud of you. And I think that's awesome. You ever want to do a Spartan race or something like that? Come on down. Let me know. That's my gig. I
All
love doing
right.
those things. No, keep it up. And dude, that's phenomenal. Yeah. It just jazzes me up.
It was so cool because, like, I'm just completely gassed. It was a lot hotter than I thought it would be for October in Ontario, and just across that finish line, I didn't even touch the medal. I grabbed it across the line, but then the kids were all right there, and they just wanted it. They just saw that opportunity, and then, like, I didn't even have it on yet, and each of them took turns to wear it. It was just a cool moment. It was a moment that I would have never even predicted without those slight changes in the beginning, starting to try things that I'd never done before. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And then that isn't to say that everybody has to start running, but what is that half marathon or that race to you, right? What is it? It could be anything. It could be, going to that coffee shop that you wanted to try and just sitting for a bit and taking that environment in, or reading that book, whatever that obstacle is. You might even not know what that is yet, but if that opportunity comes up, it might be something that creates that moment where you just would have never predicted it. And like I said, I didn't have that growing up. So to just decide that I want to try and run an organized event, and then how cool would it be if I could pull off a half marathon? But then to have that natural moment with my kids being there, and just seeing that, like, how they lit up, that's going to be a core memory for them, right? They're going to know that I did that, and they're going to see that example. And whether they start running or they just push themselves in ways, like, it really helps set them up for a lot more success later.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I love that you touched on whatever that race is to you, right? It's not about running. It's about your journey. You kind of evolved in that race, in that journey, right? And to the end of it. And that medal is just simply a token of the growth and the accomplishment. And then for them, like, yeah,
Yeah, and
it's so
actually,
good.
my son, he's 8 years old, and they get the medals and the hockeys and there's baseballs and different sports and things. And he saw the medal and he asked me about it, and I'm still soaking wet. And I said to him, like, you know what, bud, it isn't about this medal here. And I pointed at the race bib with the numbers on it. I'm like, it's about this here. He said, because I carried this with me. I had this bib throughout the whole race, and this on the wall means more to me than the medal, because this actually was there the whole time. So it was kind of a cool thing, because it showed him that it isn't always about the medal, it's more about the process. And I think, like, he, even at his age, was able to take that from that.
Dude, I love it. Yeah. And this is repeated over and over, but this probably needs to be. It's not necessarily what you tell them, it's what you show them. More is caught than taught. But I just love the story and the metaphor, that transition. So here's a question. In your story, some of the obstacle became around kind of the party culture around alcohol specifically. Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I'm, and I don't think it's saying like, you know, ev- don't drink, but if that's your obstacle that's stopping you and creating actually more negative byproducts than it is positive.
Mhm,
Like, that's to recognize that thing, the obstacle side of it. It might be different for you, whatever that is. Could be
mhm,
porn, could
mhm,
be drugs, could be workaholism, whatever that is, being able to recognize that. And it's hard to do. So I will challenge you as a listener. If you can, and you go to that coffee shop Sean was talking about, sit down and just evaluate, right? Try to be as objective as you can and evaluate what you got, what you're wanting to do and what might be in the way. But here's a fun little test because as you're talking through it, I love a good bourbon and a cigar with a guy. And, it's not really about the bourbon or the cigar for me. Now I enjoy them, but it's that I associate those with good conversations because it normally takes some time and they have substance in those conversations.
mhm.
So, you barbecue and you have some drinks or whatever with people. W- One test potentially of some of your friendships is go do something without alcohol. Try it out. Like I did some rucking with a guy last week, and you get up at meet 5:30 in the morning, and you have weight in your backpack, and you just like walk, you know. And we had some really good conversation about a lot of things.
Mhm.
So that's one kind of thing that popped in my mind as far as like, that's a good point. Like, what have you done that doesn't involve that? And try to create that environment, and then test the metal, so to speak.
Yeah, it's not an effort to tell people not to drink, right? That was just my
Right.
thing that was more like that staple holding a lot of the other things together that I was so afraid of changing. And by trying that dry January, which became that full, I still am not drinking, but like the full year of 2021, as I developed each milestone that I set forth myself, it was like by removing that staple that held so much else together, it gave me the confidence to be like, well, if I cannot do that, maybe I can do this, or maybe I can do that. And,
Mhm.
there's nothing saying don't have that drink, but what is that drink to you, right? What
Mhm.
is that thing that is or isn't holding you back, or that, just by not doing that thing anymore, or the other way around, introducing something, what is that thing for you that might give you that drive to start looking into some more progressive things or some real cool life changes.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's identifying it and then going after it. So it leads me to my last question. Man, I feel like these go for like 10 minutes and it's an hour already, almost into it. But okay. So I'm listening to this thing. I've heard your story. I'm fired up, but I'm at that place kind of where you were, where I didn't know where to go. Like you made this choice, but then you started Googling things. You started, what were the resources? But the question I have is if you're talking to a Sean 3 years ago that might be listening to this, that's like, cool. I want to do something like that. I don't know what to do. What recommendations would you give to them as a starting place?
As a starting place, we have to recognize that people will change when they're ready to change. We have to plant the seeds. I've heard it like we constantly plant those seeds with people that aren't ready to change. We might get them growing into something as they almost realize it on their own. That's a strategy I would use myself before I made decisions to change, trying to plant those seeds in a way that I can, hopefully get them to a point where they want to see something grow out of those. But it is about a sense of community, and it is more about allowing ourselves to find that community than it is that community showing up for us. We have to be able to make certain decisions and certain changes to allow that community to be where we belong than it is for us to just show up and expect that we're going to automatically fit in. There's a lot of internal work that we might have to do, and that could just be appreciating a different perspective or something that someone else is doing. If you're not a runner and you've got your nose in the air to just the fact that you're going to go and run this thing for the sake of running it, maybe it's not about the run as much as it is about what that does to your body physically and mentally and what that does to the people watching. It's just being open to that different perspective, and being open to that, different lifestyle that maybe you weren't before.
Mhm.
And I think being open to it will allow you to listen to these podcasts or different books and different other platforms that give you a bit more information and a bit more strategy and a bit more that you can relate to, in the sense to just like, you know what, this guy can do that. Well, I can do that too. And it's really good to know, like, starting small, and it's good to know that it doesn't happen right away, and to give myself some time. It's just looking for it in the right places will help you build all of that.
Yeah. No, that's good. If this guy can do it, so can I. I mean, that's perfect because I have a friend, right? It's me, but I have a friend that it's like, well, if they can do that, like eventually, I think I can do that, right? I can go learn that. It's good to have a healthy competitive nature as long as it's not like a negative competitive nature. If this guy can do it, so can I. It, it's more of the because he did it, I know I can too. I'm not the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, we're
Like,
not setting world records, right? We're just trying to make a better decision, or to do better things. And that's probably one of the best ways to get started, is just to find somebody that's done it and start asking them questions. Or if it's somebody that you don't have direct access to, are they posting on socials? Do they have books? Is there somebody close to that person? Like, maybe you don't go direct to the final person, but you find somebody that's mid-level or closer to where you are, and just like, how do you get to where you are from where I am? And then you find from there, you just kind of move up as you go. But it's, if you find somebody that's done it, that means it's possible, one, and that gives you some things that you can do to try to get there, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It gives you a place to get a mentor and someone to at least learn from. Love it. I feel like I could go on. We are going to have to do another episode, but we will grill during it.
Definitely.
Okay. So, speaking of finding somebody that has done it, where can people find you, follow you, that may want to learn more about what you have done and or what you are going to continue to do?
My website is seanrobinson.ca. I have all my podcast appearances and stuff all linked through there. I post videos through my website for TikTok and YouTube. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Most of my socials are at Going Dry. They're all linked through my website. There's a contact me section on my website. It's all managed by myself, and anything that, if anybody wants to reach out, it'll go direct to me. And any way that I can help, any way that I can show up for anybody that is going through some of this stuff that can relate to something I've done or could do, I'm happy to help.
Yeah. Um, I'll put everything in the notes as well on the website and all the places that this goes out. So go check out what Sean's doing. I love his story. What I love is that it's not like there's not like a conclusion to anyone's story that I've talked to, right? It's a story that continues to be written. And so we can tag on and support you and support each other, but then also like keep going, right? And finish the race strong. So many good things out of this episode. And dude, I just appreciate you taking the time and being on here with me. And that was a great episode and a great conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I agree. I think it's great, and I think if we do it in front of the grill the next time, or in this environment, I think we could definitely add to it.
We have to, even if it's just you and me that will only see it, like we should do that. Maybe for the 40th, like a celebration. But yeah, that would be we're gonna have experiential podcasting. That's the new
There we
thing. We're gonna
go.
start it. It's perfect. Awesome, Sean. Thank you, sir. We will be in touch.
Look forward to it.
All right, brother. Thanks. Guys and gals. So many things out of Sean's story. And I try to do these things on the fly at the end of these podcasts. Like, here's the things to pull. I'm gonna have to pull them and put them separately because there's just too many good ones. But here's a couple that really stick with me, and then a couple challenges I've got for you. One, regardless of where you came from or even where you are, doesn't dictate where you are going unless you choose it to. Sean is a perfect example of recognizing something the way that it was not in alignment with where he wanted it to be. He was tough and strong and took the steps to change that, and not without challenges and its own hardships that come along with work, just like anything that has lots of work to it. But he did that and continues to do that. And so can you. You can do that too. So if you need other people or you're looking for other people, reach out to us and we'll do our darndest to see if we can connect some people in communities, right? Because listening to podcasts is awesome and you can get motivated. Typically, unless you're having like a listen party or a watch party, you're probably riding solo right now, right? And so you might get fired up, but let's let's get the resources to go and take it to that next step and cross that line. But if we can connect with other people that are in the similar boat, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We want to try to help with that. Because you've made it to the end of this podcast, would tell me that more than likely you're already kind of further down the road than some may be that because you're wanting to listen to these type of podcasts. So my throwdown to you is, if anyone came to mind that that might have some of the similar struggles that Sean did, or struggles in a different context but still wanting to grow, share it with them. So I heard this podcast, couple, one beautiful voice guy and another kind of goofy guy. You can choose who is who, but I'm the goofy guy. But share it with them, because that's one way that you might be able to introduce some concepts that then can start the conversation and help them on their journey. That's what friends do, right? We look out for each other. And that's why we do this podcast. So I'm so glad all of you are here. I appreciate your continued support. Would love to hear if there's anything in particular that you want to talk about. And if you have a story that you want to be on this show, you can reach out to me at hello@skilledDad.com. And we'll see if we can line up one of those intro calls we talked about and see if we can make it happen. Until then, I hope you can take away all these things and apply them to your life on your journey to becoming a skilled dad.